While we live in the world, countless conflicts and misunderstandings arise from not being able to see the truth. One of the things that causes such problems is preconceptions. This is also a component of the ego. When we hear or see certain information from people, mass media, newspapers, magazines, etc., we often accept it without much doubt. Additionally, there are many cases where we make judgments about people based only on memories from our past experiences. If you see a male employee who is heartbroken over a breakup with his lover acting unkindly once and think, that person is a very unkind person, and you always look at him that way, you are not seeing the truth. We are making the mistake of seeing his temporary appearance as permanent. Our lives always change depending on time, place, and situation. People change, and the environment changes as well. If you do not consider this and perceive past actions as permanent images, you will not be able to see the truth. Only as is the truth. Our memories are of the past. The past is dead. There is no truth there. The truth exists only in the pure present before our eyes. Only as is the truth. Once upon a time, a comedian borrowed money from his friends to start a restaurant, and the business was very successful. But one day, scary-looking thugs entered the restaurant and took a seat. He felt very scared. Despite his fear, he believed that if he carelessly kicked them to leave, it could lead to a more serious situation. Therefore, he served them drinks and treated them as if they were close friends. Eventually, they were more naive than they looked. So they remained quiet and did not harm the customers, and then left. After that, they came to visit him occasionally, and they became very close. They developed a relationship where they helped him when he had problems. If he had been afraid of gangsters due to his prejudice against them and tried to drive them out, saying that they were a hindrance to his business, the gangsters would have interfered with his business even more. A woman went out to meet her friend and saw her friend's husband coming out of the hotel with a beautiful woman. The woman thought it was strange. So she met her friend and shared what she had witnessed. Upon hearing the story, her friend's mind was filled with various thoughts. Who on earth is that woman? Could it be that my husband is having an affair? Something has been a little suspicious these days. Oh, what can I do about this? Should I tell this to my husband? No, things might get worse. What should I do? After worrying about this for several days, one day my friend gathered courage and asked her husband the whole story of the incident. Then my husband said, "Oh, she's the boss's secretary, but she had an appointment with a guest at the hotel's coffee shop, so she accompanied me instead of the boss." It was a misunderstanding that stemmed from my typical preconceptions about hotels. When I was a teacher, I taught male students in my high school class. While I was in class for a while, one student was making a lot of noise. So, I asked the student to come forward. That student was a student in our class who did not study well and often got into trouble. As the student came forward, many students started making fun of him. The student became very angry and swore at his classmates. I was watching the figure calmly. I could feel the student's heart. Even if I were him, I would have felt bad. I gave him a brief warning there, and after the class was over, I let him in, asking him to come to the teacher's office for a while. The class continued as it was. As soon as the class was over, the student came to the teacher's office. He stood with a very serious look on his face. He made a big mistake. The homeroom teacher was standing in front of him, and he cursed at his classmates. So this was a complete disregard for the homeroom teacher. It was something to be scolded for. I scolded quietly. I fully understand how you felt at that time. I would have felt the same way too. But what happens to me if you do that? Please refrain from doing that next time, okay? The student had tears in his eyes. He was very scared, thinking he would get in trouble. But it seems that he was unexpected to finish by saying this: "Since then, the student thought of me as his older brother." I was not influenced by the preconception that the student was a troublesome guy. Once upon a time, Jesus was tempted to judge an adulterous woman. People were very curious about what kind of judgment Jesus would make. This is because Jesus has always shouted, "Do not judge others. Love your enemies." According to the precepts up to that time, adulterers were to be stoned to death. Countless people flocked to see the scene. Jesus had to make a decision. If he followed the previous precepts, all his teachings would be false. However, if he did not follow the precepts, he would be destroying them. Therefore, people waited with rapt attention to see what would come out of his mouth. Finally, Jesus spoke, "If any of you are innocent, stone this woman." People were dumbfounded. They never dared to think that such a verdict would come out. This was because these words did not violate the precepts and did not contradict his usual teachings. Jesus was fully awake at that moment. Because he had no preconceptions, he was able to make the most appropriate judgment for the situation. It was a wisdom that could only come from a state of pure, spotless soul. It was the wisdom of life. It was the harmony and moderation that best suited the situation. The world changes constantly. People and environments change. Therefore, judgments must always be made accordingly. We must consider the time, place, people, their level, and the overall situation. A judgment that can contribute to the happiness of the whole, that is love. Preconceptions should take a step back in the face of love. Because it is not love. It is nothing more than the past and a memory. It is dead. The truth is alive every moment. Therefore, never be bound by preconceptions.